I was working 2 jobs and coming home early one day when I heard her tell our neighbor, "He's pathetic, thinks extra hours make him a real man. I'm just glad I don't have to pretend I'm attracted to him anymore." The neighbor, Jake, laughed. "Girl, you can do so much better." She smirked. "Trust me, I already am." I got angry and silently put down the anniversary dinner I'd brought home and left. Yesterday, she started calling nonstop. "Listen, folks, I never thought I'd be one of those guys posting their relationship train wreck on Reddit. But here I am at 2:37 a.m. in some crappy motel room, still trying to process what the actual hell happened today. 7 years of marriage down the drain in the span of 45 seconds. Some background. I've been killing myself working 2 jobs for the past 4 months. Day shift at a factory, 6 to 3. Night shift at a warehouse, 6 to midnight. Then, 5 hours of sleep before doing it all over again. Why? Because we've been saving for a down payment on a house, and Clara's been building her small business, which hasn't turned a profit yet, but is supposedly just about to take off. Whatever. I believed in her. I believed in us. I believed in the dream of owning a home, a place where we could build our future together, maybe raise a family. Clara's business was her passion, her creative outlet. It was a small boutique that sold handcrafted jewelry and art pieces. She had a real eye for design, and everyone said her stuff was unique. But passion doesn't always pay the bills, and the reality was, the boutique was bleeding money. I didn't mind working the extra hours if it meant supporting her dream. I figured once the business found its footing, I could go back to just 1 job, and we'd have more time together. Today was our 7th anniversary. 7 years. That's a long time, right? A lot of shared memories, inside jokes, and plans for the future. I wanted to make it special. I managed to swap shifts so I could be home by 5 instead of midnight. Wanted to surprise her, you know? Stopped by this local place that does these fancy-ass steaks. Cost me $300 for the whole meal, but whatever. It's our anniversary. Got her favorite wine, those chocolate lava cakes she loves, the works. I even bought actual flowers from an actual florist instead of the grocery store ones I usually grab. I was putting in the effort, man. I wanted her to know how much I appreciated her, how much I loved her. The steakhouse was a place we'd gone for our 2nd anniversary. It was a bit of a splurge, but the atmosphere was always romantic, the food incredible. Clara had raved about the lava cakes, saying they were the best she'd ever had. The flowers were a mix of lilies and roses, her favorites. I remembered the exact shade of pink she loved. I pull up to our apartment complex around 4:45, and I notice our neighbor Jake's car in the guest spot. Nothing weird about that. He lives right across the hall. Sometimes he helps Clara with heavy stuff when I'm working. Good neighbor. Always friendly. We've had beers together a few times. Just a normal dude. Jake was a software engineer who worked from home. He was always around, it seemed, and he was always willing to lend a hand. He'd helped Clara move some heavy boxes for her boutique, and he'd even fixed our kitchen sink once when it was leaking. We'd barbecued together on the 4th of July, shared a few laughs. I never suspected anything. He was just Jake, the neighbor. So I'm walking up the stairs to our 3rd-floor apartment, balancing all this food and the flowers, and I hear them through the door. It wasn't closed all the way, just cracked open enough that I could hear everything. The apartment building was old, and the walls were thin. You could sometimes hear snippets of conversations from the hallway, but I never eavesdropped. I valued my privacy, and I respected others too. This time, though, I didn't have a choice. Their voices carried through the cracked door, and I couldn't help but overhear. That's when I heard it. Clara's voice, clear as day. "He's pathetic. Thinks extra hours make him a real man. I'm just glad I don't have to pretend I'm attracted to him anymore." I froze. Like literally couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the spot. The bags with the fancy dinner and the flowers felt like they weighed a ton. My heart started pounding in my chest, a cold dread washing over me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Clara, the woman I'd shared my life with for 7 years, the woman I'd sacrificed so much for, was talking about me like I was nothing. Then Jake laughed and said Clara could do so much better. And then, this is the part that keeps playing on loop in my head. She said, "Trust me, I already am." The way she said it, smug, satisfied, like she was proud of herself. There was a confidence in her voice, a certainty that cut through me like a knife. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the inflection. It was like she was relishing in my humiliation. I stood there for maybe 20 seconds that felt like 20 years. Every word was like a punch to the gut. The image I had of my marriage, of Clara, shattered in an instant. Part of me wanted to kick the door open and start screaming. Part of me wanted to break down, crying right there in the hallway. I felt a mix of rage, betrayal, and a deep, aching sadness. How could she say those things? How could she do this to me? What I actually did was silently push the door open, set the anniversary dinner down on the counter, placed the flowers next to it, and walked out. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't even slam the door. I just quietly pushed it open, placed the food and flowers on the kitchen counter, and turned around. It was like I was in a trance. I couldn't process the emotions swirling inside me, so I just shut down. They didn't even notice me. They were in the living room. And from where I stood in the kitchen, I could see them on the couch. Not doing anything. Just sitting there, but way too close. Her hand was on his arm. She was looking at him the way she used to look at me. They were close, their bodies almost touching. Clara was leaning towards Jake, her gaze intense. There was a familiarity in their body language that I'd never seen before. It was like I was looking at a scene from a movie, not my own life. Here's the thing about rage. It can make you ice cold. I didn't say a word. Didn't slam the door. Just quietly pulled it shut and walked back to my car. I didn't even trust myself to speak. I was afraid of what I might say, what I might do. So I just left. I needed to get away, to clear my head, to try to make sense of the chaos that had just erupted in my life. I drove around for 3 hours, phone blowing up the whole time. I'm guessing she found the food and realized what happened. 47 missed calls by 8 p.m. I finally turned my phone off. I couldn't face her. I couldn't face the questions, the lies, the excuses. I just needed space. I drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring past me. I had no destination in mind, just a desperate need to escape. For the past 7 years, I've been working my ass off to build a life with someone who thinks I'm a joke. 7 fucking years. All those late nights, all those sacrifices, all those dreams we'd shared. Were they all a lie? Was I just a fool to believe in us? The thought was unbearable. My brother Timothy warned me about her. Said she was high maintenance. But I was too stupid to listen. Timothy had always been protective of me. He'd seen my past relationships fail, and he'd always offered his honest, sometimes blunt, opinions. He'd never been a fan of Clara. He thought she was too focused on herself, too demanding. But I was in love. I was convinced that Clara was different, that she was the one. I ignored Timothy's warnings, blinded by my feelings. Guys, I've been sleeping 4 hours a night for months so we could afford a house. And meanwhile, she's been laughing at me with the neighbor. The irony of it all was crushing. I was working myself to the bone to build a future for us, while she was betraying me in our own home. The house was supposed to be our sanctuary, our haven. It was supposed to be a symbol of our commitment, our love. Now, it felt like a cruel joke. After driving nowhere for hours, I ended up at this motel where I'm writing this. 28 years old, and sitting in a motel that charges by the hour because I can't go home. $34 a night, by the way. I'm counting every penny now because I have no idea what comes next. The motel was a depressing place. The walls were thin, the furniture was old and stained, and the air smelled stale. But it was a place to hide, a place to be alone with my thoughts. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment, not after what I'd heard. I turned my phone back on around midnight. 26 more missed calls from Clara. 8 voicemails I can't bring myself to listen to. 3 texts from my brother asking if we're still on for basketball this weekend. How is real life still happening when my entire world just collapsed? It was surreal. The world kept turning, people kept going about their lives, while mine had been turned upside down. How could I even think about basketball when my marriage was crumbling? My best friend Quinn texted asking why Clara called him frantically asking if he'd seen me. I sent back, at a motel. Marriage over. Tell you tomorrow. He replied with holy shit, dude, and offered his couch. Might take him up on that tomorrow. Can't stay in this roach motel forever. Quinn had always been my rock. He was the kind of friend who was always there for you, no matter what. He was loyal, supportive, and always ready with a bad joke to lighten the mood. I knew I could count on him. But even his couch was a temporary solution. I needed to figure out what to do with my life. I keep thinking about the look on her face when she said, "Trust me, I already am." Like she was proud of betraying me. Like making a fool out of me was an accomplishment. That smug, satisfied look haunted me. It was like she'd won some kind of twisted game, and I was the loser. 7 years together. And I never knew she could be so cold. The worst part? We have all our money in joint accounts. All of it. Every cent I've been killing myself to earn. Tomorrow, I need to figure out how to untangle our finances before she empties everything. The thought of her taking all my money, the money I'd worked so hard for, made my blood boil. I knew I had to act fast. I had to protect myself. Should I call in sick to both jobs? I've never missed a day at either one. How do I even start to deal with this? I'm a reliable guy. I show up on time, I work hard, and I don't complain. But how could I possibly go to work tomorrow? How could I focus on my tasks when my mind was racing with anger and confusion? I found her credit card statement on our shared cloud last week. $300 at this lingerie place. I thought it was for our anniversary, but it wasn't for me. Bet Kyler's enjoying it though. The lingerie, the late nights, the secret smiles. It all started to fit together, the pieces of a puzzle I hadn't wanted to see. The signs were there, but I'd been too blind, too trusting, too tired to notice. Looking back, there were signs. Her business meetings running late. The new clothes. Always texting and putting her phone face down when I walked in. Classic stuff I was too tired to notice because I was working myself to death to build our future. The late nights at the boutique, the sudden interest in fashion, the way she'd hide her phone when I came near. They were all red flags, waving frantically in my face, but I'd ignored them. I'd wanted to believe in her, in us. Section 2. It's almost 3 a.m. now. In 4 hours, I'm supposed to be at work like nothing happened. Like my entire life didn't just get torched. How am I supposed to operate heavy machinery when I can barely remember how to breathe? The thought of going to the factory, of working alongside my colleagues, of pretending everything was normal, was unbearable. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, and I couldn't wake up. I keep flipping between wanting to scream at her and never wanting to see her face again. Between wanting to forgive everything and wanting to make her life crash and burn like mine just did. The emotions were a roller coaster. 1 minute I was consumed by rage, the next I was drowning in sadness. I wanted to lash out, to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. But then, a part of me longed for the way things used to be, for the love and connection we once shared. Brothers, I've spent years working my ass off for someone who thinks I'm pathetic. Now, I'm about to show her what a pathetic man with nothing left to lose can really do. I felt like I'd been pushed to the edge. I had nothing left to lose, and that realization gave me a strange sense of freedom and a dangerous resolve. Tomorrow, I start with the bank accounts. Then I call a lawyer. Then I figure out exactly how long she's been screwing Jake. Then, I don't know, but she's going to learn that those extra hours didn't just make me tired. They made me tough. And they taught me that I can endure a lot more pain than she thinks I can. I was determined to fight back, to protect myself, to make her understand the consequences of her actions. I was no longer the naive, trusting husband. I was a man who had been betrayed, and I was ready to do whatever it took to reclaim my life. Update tomorrow after I figure out next steps. Need advice on protecting myself financially? ASAP. Anyone been through similar crap? What's the first move? I needed guidance. I needed to know what my rights were, what my options were. Reddit had always been a source of support and advice, a place where people shared their experiences and offered help. I was desperate, and I turned to the online community for help. Update 1. First, huge thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. Your advice probably saved me from making some serious mistakes in those first critical days. The response to my post was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out, offering their support, their advice, and their own stories of betrayal. I was amazed by the outpouring of empathy from strangers on the internet. It was like a lifeline in the middle of a storm. For those just joining the shit show, quick recap. 2 weeks ago, I came home early from my second job with an anniversary dinner and overheard my wife Clara telling our neighbor Jake I was pathetic for working extra hours and that she was glad she didn't have to pretend to be attracted to me anymore. Then she admitted to already cheating. I left the dinner, checked into a motel, and went dark. I cut off all contact with Clara. I needed time to process, to think, to plan my next move. The silence was deafening, but it was also necessary. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions. I had to be strategic. Now for the update. It's been 16 days of complete radio silence from my end. 16 days of living on Quinn's couch. 16 days of Clara absolutely losing her mind trying to find me. Quinn had been a saint. He'd opened his home to me without hesitation, offering me a place to stay, a shoulder to cry on, and a listening ear. His couch wasn't the most comfortable, but his friendship was invaluable. Clara, on the other hand, had been blowing up my phone, leaving frantic messages, and even contacting my friends and family. Her desperation was a stark contrast to her earlier coldness, and it gave me a strange sense of grim satisfaction. And bros, I'm not gonna lie. There's a dark satisfaction in watching someone who betrayed you suddenly realize they've lost control of the situation. It was like watching a carefully constructed facade crumble. Clara had always been so confident, so in control. To see her panicking, to see her desperate, was a stark reminder of the consequences of her actions. First thing I did, after posting here, was call in sick to both jobs for the first time ever. Then I hit the bank when they opened at 9. Transferred half of our joint savings, $14,000, into a new account at a different bank. Left enough to cover bills for the month because, despite everything, I'm not trying to get our utilities shut off or miss the rent. The advice from Reddit was clear: protect yourself financially. I followed it to the letter. I opened a new bank account, transferred half the savings, and made sure there was enough money left to cover our immediate expenses. I wasn't trying to be vindictive, but I wasn't going to let Clara drain our accounts either. The bank lady gave me this concerned look when I explained I needed to separate finances immediately. I must have looked like hell after no sleep and the shock still fresh on my face. I'm sure I was a mess. I hadn't slept properly in days, my clothes were rumpled, and my eyes were red and swollen.